In section 2, we're going to be starting on low-fidelity sketching. It's a really important aspect of doing user experience design and learning some of the fundamentals for quickly solving problems. So let's get started. Throughout this section, we're going to understand some rules around our technology. What are the pixels? What are the sizes? What are some context and screens? All for getting us starting to sketch and understand what we're doing. We'll talk about size and interaction, what is worth kind of thinking about and doing. We'll talk about interaction types, and then we'll communicate why drawing and communicating value from start to finish is really about speeding up and iterating quickly. So let's get started and join on our journey. Technology rules and interaction. UX and UI understands the details. In user experience design, we really have to require a lot of consideration of both our users, of our business, of what we're designing for, and great user interfaces require a lot of work. Now, because there's a lot of work in that, we want to be able to give ourselves access to thinking about, exploring ideas, coming up with solutions that are hard to find. And sketching is a really great foyer into solving some of those problems. Now, we are really responsible for creating a satisfying user experience for our users. Now, that satisfaction can be a function of a lot of things, whether it's content related, whether it's meeting the user's needs, where they're at. The user interfaces that we design for are increasingly everywhere, right? Whether it's smartphones or tablets or computers, they are becoming ubiquitous in our world. And we need to understand what is useful and usable by our users. Now, our UIs need to be thought through to make sure that those are working the way they are. Now, like in other videos, we really tried to understand what the business needs and what the user wants to do, and the user interface kind of lives in that space between. Now, trying to solve this can be very challenging, right? Because the reality is that we really need to give ourselves a space to think through the problems and understand this larger scale, and drawing and sketching is a way to do that. Now, UI is really thinking about the pixels on the screen, right? What does it look like? How is it there? And we have to think about screens that aren't just for a phone, but also can scale between phone and tablet, desktop. And we use web technologies at which to do some of this, and we want to know what the interactions are. Is it a keyboard and a mouse? Is it touchscreen? Are they speaking into their phone? Or do they shake it? Is there haptic feedback? Like, all this stuff is part of what we're trying to translate. And all needs to be thought through and can be considered in relatively quick forms through sketching. Now, before we ever start sketching, in the reality of setting the rules, we need to consider the structure of our screens. What is there? What are they made of? What are the sizes? And how do we think through them? And that can start with defining and thinking through grids. Start with 12 columns and 12 column scale to tablet and to desktop, and that's a very common grid pattern because it's used for Twitter Bootstrap and other things like that. But as UI designers, we can define these things ourselves. But if we know what the structure is, we can build on them and know what our output is. Pencil and paper are still incredibly cheap and incredibly fast to think through ideas. Now, drawing is a fundamental skill in making UI design, and using software is a type of drawing. So if you start on a piece of paper, you're fast, you're thinking through quick sketches, you're thinking through the solutions, and then you're using the software which to execute on those ideas. Now, UI is a process, and by doing that, you're kind of running through the cycles. You're thinking through the steps, you're understanding what your user wants to do, you're understanding the content and the context at which that content is being used, and sketching allows us to explore all of these ideas, as I said before, quickly. Now, in thinking about sketching, it's important to kind of relate and build on stuff that we already know. Now, Marvel app is a prototyping tool, but they also offer up some really great little sketching options. And Sketchpad is some grid-based versions of your either phones or your tablets and your outputs. And we can kind of download these and see what they look like. I highly recommend building on some of these tools so that you can give yourself visuals, right? Whether it's you're drawing for iPad or you're drawing for the phone. These have 3-up, so you can kind of think through sequences. These aren't the only tablet sketching tools that are out there, but I highly recommend kind of grabbing some of these, printing them out, and having some things that are kind of useful to see what they look like. Now, for us, we really want to be able to sketch, and sketching allows us to experience our outputs and design our low fidelity solutions quickly, because we want to fail fast and iterate. So let's get excited about continuing our UX journey and improving our low fidelity skills.